Welcome to English Podcasts. Relax and enjoy your listening practice.
It was late October when I began the crossing, though by then the calendar mattered less than the clouds gathering above the mountain passes, heavy with snow that had not yet fallen, but already weighed on the air. I had planned the route for months, studying maps, checking weather patterns, speaking with rangers who knew the trails in summer but warned me against them in autumn. "The mountains don't care about your plans," one of them said. "They only respond to respect." At the time, I nodded, as if I understood. But true understanding comes not from words, but from walking, from cold fingers fumbling with frozen zippers, from breath turning to ice inside your scarf, from moments when the world narrows to a single step forward, because anything more, any thought of the summit or the descent, would be too much to carry. I started at dawn from a small village nestled deep in the valley, where the last houses gave way to alpine meadows, still golden with dried grass, though frost already glittered on the stones. My pack was heavier than I wanted it to be. Food for 5 days, a sleeping bag rated for -20, a stove, fuel, extra gloves, maps sealed in plastic, and a satellite beacon I hoped I wouldn't need. The first few hours were deceptively gentle, winding through forest paths where pine needles muffled my footsteps and the scent of resin filled the air. Birds called from unseen branches. A fox crossed the trail ahead and paused, watching me with curious eyes before vanishing into the undergrowth. It felt like a blessing, a sign that I was still among the living, still welcome in this world. But as I climbed higher, the trees thinned and then disappeared altogether, replaced by jagged rocks and patches of old snow that never fully melted in the shade. The wind grew stronger, no longer just a breeze, but a constant presence pushing against my body as if testing my will. By midday, I reached the first pass, a narrow ridge where the path became little more than a suggestion between boulders. One misstep could mean a fall into the ravine below, so I moved slowly, deliberately, placing each foot with care, my trekking poles biting into the scree with every uncertain step. Then, just after noon, the sky changed. What had been a pale blue dome turned gray within minutes, and snow began to fall, not gently, but in thick, wet flakes that clung to my jacket and quickly soaked through. Visibility dropped to less than 30 meters, and the trail vanished beneath a growing layer of white. I stopped, pulled out the map, tried to orient myself using the compass, but the landmarks I had memorized were now hidden. For the first time, doubt crept in. Not panic, not yet, but a quiet voice asking whether I had overestimated my strength, underestimated the mountain. I found partial shelter behind a rock formation and ate a protein bar, forcing myself to chew even though I wasn't hungry. Cold seeped through my boots, and my fingers, despite the gloves, began to stiffen. I knew I couldn't stay. Stopping meant danger, so I pressed on, following the general direction of the slope, trusting that if I kept descending, I would eventually find safer ground. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the wind and the crunch of snow underfoot. My thoughts slowed, reduced to simple commands: breathe, move, don't stop. I thought of nothing beyond the next 10 steps. And then, just as daylight began to fade, I saw it, a faint glow in the distance, low and steady. A hut. Not on any map I had seen, but real, its wooden walls dark against the snow, smoke rising from the chimney. I knocked, too exhausted to call out. For a moment, the door opened, and an elderly man stood there, wrapped in a thick wool coat, his face lined with years and wind. He didn't ask questions, just stepped aside and let me in. Inside, it was warm, lit by kerosene lamp and the fire in the stone hearth. He handed me a cup of tea without sugar, strong and bitter, and pointed to a bench near the stove. I sat, unable to speak, feeling sensation return to my hands in sharp, painful waves. Later, he brought a bowl of soup, potatoes, onions, something meaty and rich, and we ate in silence, two strangers bound by the same mountain, the same storm. In the morning, the snow had stopped. The sky was clear, revealing peaks dusted in white, glowing in the early sun. He walked with me to the edge of the clearing and pointed down the valley. "Follow the stream," he said. "It will lead you to the road." I thanked him, not with many words, but with a look he seemed to understand. Then I turned and began the descent, lighter now, not because my pack had changed, but because something inside me had. Because I had learned that endurance is not about strength alone, but about humility, the willingness to keep moving when you are afraid, to accept help when you need it, and to walk forward even when the path disappears. And sometimes the greatest journeys are not measured in kilometers, but in the silence between heartbeats, in the courage to take one more step when everything in you wants to stop.